Bills Mafia. On tonight's Air Raid Hour, Dave and I will be power ranking the top 10 Bills players ages 25 and under. How bright is the future in Buffalo? What positions have the best young players? We dive into all those questions and more. But first,
welcome to the Air Raid Hour, a Cover One Network podcast. Here are your hosts, Judge Mathis and Tilt Money.
welcome in, Bills Mafia, to another edition of the Air Raid Hour presented by the Cover One Sports Network. Not a lot of Bills news to talk about right now. Obviously, the Buffalo Bills hired an officiating analyst today in John Perry. The news just broke that Marquez Valdes-Scantling is in town for a visit. We'll possibly touch on those topics towards the end of the show. But today is not about the present, Dave. It's about the future of the Buffalo Bills as we take a look at the top young talent age 25 and under.
Yeah, and like you start going through this roster and you start looking at like what Brandon Beane has done and what he's talked about, the infusion of youth, and ultimately I was looking at this roster today and you go down the list, and as it stands right now, the Bills, out of all the players on their roster, only have 9 players currently, 9 that are age 30 or older on the roster. Everyone else, at least as of May 13th, is age 29 and younger. Now, some of those people will turn 30 before the season starts. But if you think about having 80, 90 guys, close to 90 guys right now, and only 10%, a little less than 10% of those guys, or just at 10%, are age 30 and older, it's pretty impressive. Being the oldest guy on the roster being Von Miller.
Yeah, and for tonight's exercise, we're going to do sort of like a semi-snake draft style where Dave's going to have the first, or I'm going to have the first pick, excuse me. Dave's going to have the second 2, and we're just going to go one by one until we have a total accumulation of 10 players that we think are essentially the future of the Buffalo Bills, players who are 25 years right now, today, or younger. Didn't do enough research to see if maybe they're 26 by the time the season starts, but we'll just pretend.
Doesn't matter.
Or now. Doesn't matter. Right now, the exercise is 25 as of today. And I'll tell you, before we even get started, I did a top 10 list of my own. I'm just going to keep going down the list sort of and take my highest ranked player as we go. I believe in best player available in these type style of snake drafts. I don't believe in going for position of need, but 8 of the 10 players on my list were day 1 or day 2 draft picks by the Buffalo Bills. So that says something a little bit, I think, about the way Brandon Beane has attacked the draft over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I mean, you and I were texting earlier in the day, and we were kind of going back and forth a bit, and we landed pretty much on the same kind of top, 7, 8, 9 guys. It was once you got down to like that 8th, 9th, 10th, you could go a lot of different directions because again, that you start to look at the Bills' talent at age 25 and under, and you have guys like Spencer Brown, or 26, who's not even going to be part of this conversation that they have as well. And you have a bunch of guys kind of in that sort of range. You have Spencer Brown, who's 26. You have Connor McGovern, who's 26. You have Taylor Rapp, who's 26. Obviously Josh Allen's 27. So like a ton of guys that aren't even going to be part of the rankings tonight, but are not that old either. So it's a good youthful roster right now for the Bills by and large, right?
All right, so I'm going to kick things off tonight, and my first overall pick in this sort of snake draft style power ranking of the top Bills 25 years or younger, I'm going to go with Dalton Kincaid with my first overall pick. 91 targets as a rookie, finished the year turning those 91 targets into 73 catches for 673 yards and 2 touchdowns. The expectation for all of those numbers is that they go up in 2024 with all of the various different weapons the Buffalo Bills lost in the passing game, including, obviously, Stephon Diggs. There was a lot to do about Sam Laporta and the production he had as a rookie And a lot of people were like, well, the Bills made a mistake. They should have taken Sam Laporta. Or why did the Bills take a tight end? Or why did the Bills trade up? All those various different things. I think Dalton Kincaid's going to put an end to that conversation in 2024. I think he's going to outperform Sam Laporta. And I think he's going to show everyone why Brandon Beane made a really, really good decision. I think he'll be one of the top 5-6 tight ends in the National Football League this season. It was a tough choice because there's a guy who I think you're going to place number 2 that easily could be number 1 on this list. But I went with Dalton Kincaid with my first pick here.
Yeah, and I think you hit on it, right? It's you lose Stephon Diggs, Dalton Kincaid has an incredible rookie season. Yes, maybe a little bit overshadowed by Laporta and what the Lions did, but at the end of the day, it was a phenomenal season for him, and I think for me exceeded expectations. And so he is now going to, at least right now, he's probably being looked at as maybe the most talented pass catcher on the team. Whether or not he gets the most targets, that can be debated. Whether or not they kind of split those targets evenly throughout, I do expect an uptick, but the smoothness in his route running, his maturity he showed as a rookie, I think the increase in touchdown production will follow in year 2 for Dalton Kincaid, and making himself available at multiple levels on the field for Josh Allen. Especially with the fact that they didn't replace Diggs with a veteran alpha wide receiver. They went to the draft for that route to get a guy they think that can come in and do that in Keon Coleman. So it makes sense going with Dalton Kincaid.
So who do you have as your number 2 player if we
Yep.
are power ranking the Bills' top players 25 years or younger?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about Matt Milano in his earlier years being underrated, and then people finally starting to catch on to him over the years, right? And realizing how good of a player he was, and eventually he earned that All-Pro honor. Terrel Bernard for me is my number 2, and he is in a way kind of, I think, following in a similar path that a guy like Matt Milano did, and maybe even quicker, right?
Mhm.
Probably should have been an All-Pro last year, right? I think the numbers to me are indisputable. 3 interceptions, had 10 tackles for loss as a linebacker, which was 3rd on the team, led the team in tackles, 3 fumble recoveries, 5 passes defensed as a linebacker. And it also has to be put in context. He did that with a lot of people going in the season, and probably us included, if you go back and look at the receipts, questioning, like, is he going to be able to do this? Is he going to be able to, quote, replace Tremaine Edmonds in this defense? And the one thing we talked about was like, well, maybe McDermott's going to stylistically change things up a little bit with the linebackers, and he thrived in this system. And it is not hyperbole to say that the Bills lost that game in the playoffs against Kansas City because they didn't have Terrel Bernard on the field. I think he makes a huge difference in that game. He made a huge difference all year as the Bills saw guys dropping like flies all year. And I know he was out for that playoff game, but as the Bills saw guys dropping like flies all year on the defense, Trey White going out, right? Daquan Jones going out, key contributors, Matt Milano going out. Terrel Bernard, he was the man in there in the middle and exceeded by far all expectations. So for me, he is definitely Dalton Kincaid's the guy on offense. Terrel Bernard's the guy on defense.
Yeah, I mean, there are probably some national pundits out there who don't even know Terrel Bernard's name. They don't know who he is. And that's absolutely crazy because he was probably the best Mike linebacker in football last season, better than the guy who was first team All-Pro in Roquan Smith. I mean, you mentioned some of the statistics. In totality, 143 total tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 9 quarterback hits, 6.5 sacks, 5 passes deflected, 3 interceptions, 3 fumble recoveries. The only thing he didn't do was seemingly force fumbles because he did every single thing else on the football field for the Buffalo Bills. He just has a nose for the football. He's a playmaker. He's the green dot on the defense. I almost made him my number 1. He is that good. But I just think Dalton Kincaid becoming, I think, the X target, the alpha target for the Buffalo Bills this year, just slightly edged him over who I think is going to be the new leader of our defense in Terrel Bernard. Who is your number 3 player as we power rank the top 10 Buffalo Bills under the age of 25 or 25 years and younger?
Yeah, this one's tough, right? I think you can go a number of different directions after you go through the top 2. I think Kincaid and Bernard are the clear top 2. I don't think you'll get a lot of pushback on that. But for number 3, I'm going with the engine, right, of this offense. I think last year and that on the ground, and that to me is James Cook. I think he earned the Pro Bowl nod last year, obviously, with that huge breakout year he had.
Mhm.
Over 1,100 rushing yards, 44 catches to go along with that, more than doubled his reception total from his rookie year of 2022. Really took the team on his back in a couple of those games down the stretch against Kansas City, against Dallas, against Philadelphia. And keep in mind as well, against a team like Philadelphia, for example, a good rushing defense coming into that game, and the Bills committed and stayed with that under Joe Brady. Look, I feel like, and I've said this on the last show, if James Cook can replicate what he did last year and have that
Mhm.
same type of season this year, like I am going to be very happy for it. So if there's even an improvement on his numbers from last year, as Pops Mafia says here,
Yeah.
Cook going to another level this year, the ceiling is super high for him, right? And as
Mhm.
just the tip of canoe says, and he had some bad drops too. So he might not have even reached his full potential yet.
Yeah.
But he is that dude right now to take the pressure off, right? We talk about what the
Mhm.
Bills did in the wide receiver room this entire offseason. James Cook is looking like a star in the making right now, and
Yeah.
especially after that Pro Bowl season. I'm really excited to see what he'll do this year in 2024.
Yeah, and now it's a full season of Joe Brady's playbook too, right? And we saw at LSU what he did with a guy like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, made him a first-round pick. I think the question you have ranking James Cook this high, and I agree with you because mine was the exact same. I had James Cook number 3 as well. The question you ask yourself is positional value, because I
You're
saw a
right.
couple people in the comment section talk about Christian Benford. You could probably consider Gregory Rousseau here. But to me, even if James Cook is just a Buffalo Bill for 2 more years, I think that he is an absolute vital piece of
Yep.
this offense and a vital
Yep.
piece of our Super Bowl aspirations.
Yep.
So to me, that's what gets him ranked so high on this list, even if he's just a Buffalo Bill for 2, maybe 3 more years if we decide to franchise him. So I'm right there with you. I had him number 3 on my list as well. My number 4 in our power rankings of the top Buffalo Bills ages 25 years or younger. I'm going to go to the defense here, going offense,
Mm,
defense, offense, defense. I'm going to go with Gregory Rousseau.
mm,
He has started his career 4 sacks, 8 sacks, 5 sacks through his first 3 seasons as the Bills starting edge. He's been a starter since day one. He is a length and strength player. He's not just like he's not a pure, bendy edge type of rusher. He looked last year like he was about to hit that ceiling. He hurt his foot, and by say hurt his foot, sort of the reports have come out since then. He was playing on a broken foot last year, people. So kind of hard to do when you got to plant and go after the quarterback, plant and set the edge like you do as an edge player. But he played through it, but he clearly wasn't the same after that hot start that he had to the season. So I'm pretty confident in 2024. This is the year Rousseau is going to hit that ceiling. He's going to crack double-digit sacks, and I'm pretty content with him. He'd be higher if he was a pure bendy edge, but I'm pretty content
mm.
with him just inside my top 5 here as a career 8 to 10 sack elite edge setter. I'm okay with that, especially at the end of the first round. I think the Buffalo Bills are going to get exactly from Gregory Rousseau what they expected from Gregory Rousseau, because I think that's probably his ceiling.
Yeah, and that's a fine ceiling too, right? Because the Bills now invested in the draft in a sort of pure pass rushing type of guy in Javon Solomon. They hope Von Miller can come back to form. You've got a little bit of a mixture of both with AJ Epinesa there. He is definitely more on the lengthier side, but Rousseau is the starter, right? Is the tone setter on the edge there. He's a playmaker, right? So he's not just about like, okay, he can get to the quarterback and get some of those cleanup sacks. His length affects the running game. His length affects the quarterback's ability to throw over the line of scrimmage. We've seen the batted balls from Rousseau. We've even seen him make plays on the ball over the course of his first couple seasons in the NFL. And I think at the end of the day, this comes down to what are the Bills going to envision for Gregory Rousseau beyond just picking up this 5th-year option that they did, right? So is
Mhm.
he going to be part of the future and given an extension? a monster year from him this year. Double-digit sacks, I think, would qualify as that for him, especially as a guy who's not necessarily a pure pass rusher, would probably do that. And so, yeah, I think Rousseau. I think Rousseau makes sense here, and I'm excited to see what he can do this year, and ultimately if he earns some kind of extension from the Bills.
All right. Who do you have as your number 5 Buffalo Bills player under the age of 25?
Yeah, and actually that's a great point by Roy. We should get the ticker
Yeah,
going.
I'm getting a ticker going right now.
All right, good. So this is number 5. I've seen a lot of people mentioning Khalil Shakir. I'm not going to go that direction, right? I think we have to remember too that the Bills, he came on really strong at the end of last year, but I'm going a different direction. I am going with Osiris Torrence, number 5 for me. Bills get a first-round caliber player last year in the draft in the second round. An absolute home run first 2 picks, by the way, last year's draft between Dalton Kincaid and Osiris Torrence. Started every game at right guard for the Bills. We saw this offseason the Bills let Mitch Morse go. They brought back David Edwards. They're sliding McGovern over to center. Osiris Torrence has maybe kind of been the forgotten talking point about this offensive line this season because he was so good as a rookie. And yes, he had some moments where he had to clean some things up, but to make that pick for the Bills to go in on an interior guard, maybe a year before even the market caught up to the fact that this position is now being paid as a premium position. And so for maybe Brandon Beane to have the foresight to see that and get Torrance maybe a year before the market really blew up for guards, and the same with McGovern, by the way, same offseason. A stalwart going to now be on that right side on the interior and holding it down. Year 2, again, the sky's the limit for him. We know his strength is as a run blocker, but that's great for what the Bills, I think, are going to try to do this year with Joe Brady and continue on what they did at the end of the season last year. So for me, it is really nice having that youth on the offensive line and talented youth. And I've always said it, draft a guy that's a stud at a position if he's an absolute stud at a position, even if he can't play another position. And the Bills did that with this pick. And versatility's fine. I get that. But you don't sacrifice studliness at a given position just in the name of versatility. And they didn't do that with Osiris Torrence. Locked them in as the right guard. He's number 5 for me.
Yeah, I mean, guard is the new premium position in the NFL with all the contracts that were handed out this past offseason. You saw Carolina go crazy. Obviously, maybe they're a little bit more in need of having to bulk up their interior because Bryce Young is a shorter quarterback. But even the Rams went and spent a ton of money on the interior of their offensive line, draft capital on the interior of their offensive line with Steve Avila last year. So now we're protecting Josh Allen so he can step up in the pocket, which is important. I think all those IDLs that we talk about and have to face year after year, the Simmons of the world, the Quinnen Williams of the world, obviously the Chris Joneses of the world, having a guy with a strong base, a strong anchor like Osiris Torrence is really important when you go up against interior pass rushers of that size and of that caliber. And when teams decide to 2 deep shell the Buffalo Bills, you have a bulldozer in the run game, as you mentioned as well. He might not have been perfect in year 1, but he survived. How many offensive linemen? I'm thinking of Dylan Parham.
Started every game as a rookie.
In his first year in Vegas have just fallen flat on their face and like struggled and embarrassed themselves and gotten benched and had to be put back in, right? He survived and he made it through all 17 games, even if it wasn't perfect. So you're hopefully going to see him get better and better and better as each offseason improves. And I think you're going to see a much better Osiris Torrence heading into obviously year 2. So the future is bright for our number 5 Buffalo Bills player, 25 years or younger. Before we get to the back half of our top 10, this show is brought to you by Picasso's Pizza, 4 great locations in Western New York in places like West Seneca, Williamsville, Lancaster, and Blaisdell. Buffalo Pizza since 1980. You can order online at picassospizza.net. And if you're an out-of-towner like us, you can even get it mailed to your home. And we can tell you from experience, it is just as good as is just as fresh and good as from the restaurant. Again, that is picassospizza.net. All right, on to number 6 on my list here, and I'm going with a little bit of an upset here. An
Mm.
upset special at number 6 because a lot of people are saying Christian Benford in the comments. A lot of people are saying Khalil Shakir in the comments. I'm gonna sort of zag a little bit here. I'm going with one of the Buffalo Bills 2024 draft selections, but I'm not taking the first 2024 draft selection. I'm going with Cole Bishop here out of the University of Utah, the Bills' second round pick. Sean McDermott, Bobby Babbitt Jr., they're sort of known as the safety whisperers. They turned Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer into all pros. They've turned other sort of overlooked guys over their careers into starting caliber secondary players. Well, now they've been handed the keys to a second round caliber player. And there was a couple of quotes from a Buffalo News article that dropped yesterday that really stuck out to me. Ryan O'Halloran talked to Terrence Gray about the Buffalo Bills pre-draft process. These are some of the things that Terrence Gray had to say about Cole Bishop. In this article, which you can find at the Buffalo News, Bishop is what the team calls a finger quotes clean prospect. Character, injury history, production, football intelligence. The Bills didn't feel the need to bring him into Orchard Park for a top 30 visit or send a coach to conduct a private workout. Gray, on what he saw in person when he scouted Utah versus USC, he was most impressed with how big and athletic he was, how they utilized him, his ability to blitz, and how active he was at the line of scrimmage, but also the fact that he could play center field. So you're looking at a player in Cole Bishop here that, number one, has an opportunity because there's no one who's clear cut above him on the depth chart. You have a guy who's coming into a really good environment with Sean McDermott and Bobby Babbitt Jr., and you have a plus athlete and a plus football player. I am confident that within a year or two, Cole Bishop will be looked at as a cornerstone player for the Buffalo Bills.
I mean, it is very clear. Well, editing can do a lot of things, so let's just keep that in mind. But it is pretty, by the way it was edited and well produced. I'm not going to take anything away from the Bills embedded. The Bills and Brandon Beane were very, very happy to get Cole Bishop, and we're very happy to see him fall. We'll never know if they had any interest in Javon Bullard, but it doesn't matter. It, by all accounts, they got the guy they wanted to get, who fell to them in the second round. They were patient. They got Cole Bishop. The safety position is in a state of transition for the Bills. Yes, you signed Mike Edwards to a 1-year deal, but it's just that, a 1-year deal. Taylor Rapp was one of the first re-signings you made in the early stages, even before free agency began, right? Because you needed to get some stability there. I don't know that DeMar Hamlin has much of a long future as a football player with this team. Now he's probably going to be somewhat still around the organization, I think, no matter what happens to him on the football field. And then you have guys like Cam Lewis, and I just don't see how you can't put Cole Bishop as a premier member of as a future member or future impact player to this defense, with the way, one, the Bills talked about him in the embedded Brandon Beane, and the fact that they invested a second round pick in him, and the fact that this safety group is in transition. So I like the pick there.
We got Walter S. came in and said, Cole Bishop, didn't know we can choose players that haven't played a snap yet. Justin Shorter bandwagon, where are you at? Yes, any player on the Buffalo Bills roster under the age of 25. Part of this exercise is, yes, their previous production with the Buffalo Bills, but a lot of this is projecting into the future as well. So these are guys that we're projecting are going to possibly become the cornerstone players of the next iteration of the Buffalo Bills. So essentially, we are power ranking 1 to 10 who we think are going to be the future sort of star or future cornerstone players for this Buffalo Bills roster. That's sort of the purpose of this exercise here this evening. So with that being said, Dave, who is our number 7 player, 25 years or younger on the Buffalo Bills roster?
And I like how you just said future production, future important. Like, to me, this pick that I'm about to make is about, really, you need to hit on this pick because you are making this pick in anticipation that this person will have a pretty big impact on your team and pretty big production for you based on how things fell in this draft board. And that is Keon Coleman, the Bills pick in first pick of the second round this year. I know people will put Shakir maybe as more important, but we still have to remember that Shakir still only had 39 catches a year ago. I'm not trying to throw water on anyone's Shakir love. I love the guy. They did sign
Mhm.
Curtis Samuel as well. But at the end of the day, the Bills put a big investment in Keon Coleman and taking him where they did, knowing that there were other guys that on the board that they potentially could have taken. And a lot of Bills Mafia had a lot of opinions on that, and as we did as well on draft night. So the Bills are really banking on Keon Coleman being a pretty productive player for them, based on the fact of what they did when they picked him. So I'm not necessarily projecting what that's going to be. This is more of a pick of projecting of what the Bills are hoping will be and anticipate. And again,
Mhm.
he's only 20, as Walter says. So
Mhm.
there is a lot to like, but there is also a lot of expectation, I think, now on Keon Coleman.
Yeah, the big word here I think that you utilized was expectation. And there's a reason I think why both of us chose to put Keon Coleman ahead of Khalil Shakir, who, don't worry, Pops Mafia, Khalil Shakir will make this list. We still have a couple more picks here to go. But taking him at 33, first of all, Shakir, I love Shakir, but when you look at Shakir, you look at his future production. What's the ceiling for Khalil Shakir? You think to yourself, like Cole Beasley, right? Like that's what you want. That's the shoes you want Shakir to fill. Is you want him to fill those Beasley shoes. But Dalton Kincaid is also here, taking away a lot of those nice first down grabs, a lot of those underneath things, a lot of those over the middle things. So I think Dalton Kincaid is going to eat into Khalil Shakir's production. I think Khalil Shakir is a good player. I think he's going to be a vital part of this offense. That's why he's going to make this top 10 list. But
Mm-hmm.
expectations and opportunity might be more in line for Keon Coleman. The Buffalo Bills took him at pick number 33. So your hope is, I think, that he can be a T. Higgins type of player for you. T. Higgins is a player who's a very similar athlete, very similar type of football player, was taken in a very similar position in the draft to Keon Coleman. Coleman, if you count his pro day speed, not his combine speed, kind of equivalent to a T. Higgins. His arms are 2 inches shorter. But T. Higgins last year for the Bengals took 461 snaps on the outside versus 107 in the slot. I think Khalil Shakir is going to see more in the slot than he does in the boundary. I think Keon Coleman, despite the fact that a lot of us think he might be better as a Marquise Colston type of big slot receiver, and Amon-Ra St. Brown style, like slot receiver, power slot, I don't think that the Buffalo Bills have that objective in mind for a guy like Keon Coleman. So I can see him as early as year one. And even if he spends his entire career being this guy, I'm honestly fine with it. 60-ish catches, 700 to 900 yards. But here's the big thing that you need from him: double-digit touchdowns, right? He needs to be an alpha red zone threat. I think that's where Keon Coleman will make his money as a Buffalo Bill. I'm not worried about the catches. I'm not worried about the yards. What I want to see from him is red zone production, tutties, baby. That's what I'm looking for with Keon Coleman.
Yeah, and I mean, one of his biggest strengths are his hands, right? Extremely low
Mm-hmm.
drop rate. He has the ability to control his body. He has the ability to go up and make the contested catch. But the hands in all of that, you can go up, you can have good body control, you can beat a guy to the high point, but if you don't have the hands, it's not going to matter. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
really probably his single biggest strength is his hands, right? I mean, they're glue. So we've seen some frustrating drops from Bills players over the years, and we don't need to get into that, but you're right. In the red zone, the Bills are going to be hanging their hat on hoping that he can be a difference maker and win those battles down in the tough areas where it is to score. So yeah, I agree with you there.
My number 8 player, as we power rank Buffalo Bills players 25 years or younger, I'm going to go back to the defense here. I'm going to go Christian Benford. I think for a 6th round pick, he has been a pretty solid cornerback. He can come up and get after it and run support. He has shown ball hawking ability. And this is the season he has a chance to show what his ceiling can be. And he can try this season, or has an opportunity this season, to earn cornerstone talent, or to earn that cornerstone talent label. Rasul Douglas was not extended for a reason, right? The Buffalo Bills made him take sort of a pay cut. get some prorated bonuses. They didn't want to extend his deal because he's about to be 30 years old. Christian Benford, if you're looking at the future of the Buffalo Bills cornerback room, this is your chance to come in and you can grab it. The pathway is there for him. There's even a pathway for a guy who we're probably going to talk about in our just missed the cut list, unless you want to throw him here at the back end with your last pick. And that's Kaiir Elam, who has an opportunity to really rebound his reputation this year. But I'm going to go with the guy who's likely to be in the starting lineup, and that is Christian Benford.
Yeah, I like that pick. I mean, has to make the list with the flux that this cornerback room now is going to be in beyond 2024, right? Because we don't know what's going to happen with Kaiir Elam beyond 2024. I think this is a big year for Kaiir Elam. I think he's going to get opportunity, but Christian Benford is the dude right now opposite of Rasul Douglas. We'll see what happens with Rasul Douglas. Doubtful that he gets an extension at this point, but you never know, right? He could get a 1-year deal again. So Benford is the cornerstone right now with all the question marks within the rest of the group, right? Dane Jackson's gone. Trey White's gone, right? These guys that had stability, that brought stability to the room are gone. He's going to have to be the guy now that brings the stability to the room as the younger player, right? Opposite of Rasul Douglas. So I like the pick.
Who do you have as your 9th player as we power rank Buffalo Bills players 25 years and younger?
Yeah, so I kind of went back and forth on this one, but I don't think you can. I just kind of talked about why I had Keon Coleman above this guy, but I'm now going to come back to this guy and put Khalil Shakir as number 9 because, yes, he had the only 39 catches last year, but you saw the impact he made down the stretch of last season. You saw his ability, his yards after catch ability. When we analyzed Khalil Shakir in the pre-draft process, one of the things I said about him was he just always has this sneaky ability to kind of just like get more yards than you think he's going to get. And he's not like the most powerful guy or anything like that, but he just found a way to get sneaky yards, and he did more than that at the end of last season. So the chemistry between him and Josh Allen is clearly there. Josh Allen trusts him. We saw obviously the play against the Jets where he made that huge run after catch. But how about in the playoff game against the Chiefs, right? In the corner of the end zone, Josh Allen throwing the ball across his body to that left front pylon and Khalil Shakir making that catch. Big time trust that Khalil Shakir and Josh Allen has in Khalil Shakir. So the question will be now for Joe Brady, how do you deploy all these chess pieces between Samuel, Shakir, Coleman, right? Because you have 2 guys who can really do well inside, right? In Shakir and Samuel. Shakir will still be a big part of this offense. Samuel's 0 for 25, so he's not on the list, but Khalil Shakir with that run he made at the end of the season, and when I say run, I mean like the production over the last several weeks, he has that trust and has that chemistry, so he's going to make this list.
Yeah, just like you, I initially had Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman flipped, but I switched it right before sort of the start of the show, the more I thought about it. So the reason why I moved him down after initially having him higher was, again, what are your hopes for Khalil Shakir? And I think if fans are honest with themselves, I think they understand with his 29-inch arms, he's probably not going to be a guy who lives in the boundary, even though he can play there occasionally. He's probably going to be more of a slot type of player, more in the Cole Beasley mode. Cole Beasley was a very effective player for this Buffalo Bills team. I mean, his best season, 82 catches on 107 targets for 967 yards, 4 tutties, and 53 first downs. I think Khalil Shakir is capable of putting up those type of numbers. I mean, obviously you can't bank on it, but he was the most efficient wide receiver in football last year if you look at it just sort of like per target, and no one else was really all of that close. But the thing that Cole Beasley never had to contend with was another slot style player, and that's what the Buffalo Bills have in Dalton Kincaid. So as much as I like Khalil Shakir, the player, in terms of him being a truly like cornerstone player, I don't know if the opportunity is going to be there for him to break out like that. And maybe I'm wrong. As Charles G says, he wants 100 targets for Shakir. Maybe there is a way to get Khalil Shakir 100 targets, but I'm struggling to envision this right now. I don't know what Khalil Shakir's age is, but if we do this exercise again, I wouldn't be shocked if next year he's slightly higher on this list. the way, because the Buffalo Bills offense in 2024 is going to be such an enigma. We really don't know what to expect with this Buffalo Bills offense.
Yeah, and I think that's the hard part about it, right? Is I think like last year, and even the year Stephon Diggs was here, you always knew like, hey, it's going to be Stephon Diggs, and everyone else is going to be ancillary and kind of have their role. This year, yes, we expect Dalton Kincaid to kind of quote be the alpha, but it doesn't. I don't think it's going to translate into what we saw Stephon Diggs get as far as targets, right? In the force feeding in the 160 targets. I'd be very surprised if you saw Dalton Kincaid with 160 targets. I think it is going to be a little bit more of a spread the wealth situation between trying to get your rookie Coleman involved, trying to get your kind of marquee free agent signing and Samuel involved, trying to get Khalil Shakir to continue the momentum he took from a year ago, keeping James Cook involved in the passing game, right? So there's a lot there's a lot that the Bills kind of have to figure out here, but the good news is that they will still probably be a very pass heavy team, and so those targets will go around. I just think they'll be a little bit more spread out than they were a year ago.
My final player, as we power rank the top 10 Buffalo Bills aged 25 years and younger, and thank you to all the Buffalo Bills who applied, but the final spot on this top 10 list for me is going to go to Mr. AJ Epenesa. 6.5 sacks apiece the last 2 seasons. I think he looks to be turning that corner. He was behind Floyd last year. Then he got hurt too. I think the path is clear now for AJ Epenesa to get that full workload. And I'm confident that Epenesa is going to hit his ceiling in 2024, and that the combination of him and Groot are going to push to combine for about 20 sacks this season. I really do think both of these guys will push double digits. I think both these guys will elevate their games. So I'm going to put premium position, important position. I'm putting AJ Epenesa at the back half of my list here, number 10.
Yeah, and I like this rounding out the top 10. We went 5 offense, 5 defense. I love the balance there. And I like that the top 2 were also 1 offense, 1 defense. AJ Epenesa was one of the guys that we thought I think we all pretty much thought there was a more than 50% chance that he was not going to be back with the Bills, right? I mean, realistically, with the cap situation the Bills were in, I think we probably thought if we were going to make a single big signing, it was maybe going to be to bring AJ Epenesa back to the team. And I got to give Brandon Beane credit, because this edge group, it really needed him back ultimately. And this was really a combination of AJ Epenesa playing his best football last year and also being in a critical role and seeing what kind of role he can have beyond 2023, and obviously signing back with the Bills. Maybe could have got more money from another team. We don't know, but he has a clear path to being a pretty impactful player on this team this year, because we don't know what we're going to get from Von Miller. We don't know what Javon Solomon's going to bring you as a rookie. The edge group as a whole is pretty top heavy between Rousseau and Epenesa, and we are fortunate to have him back in the mix. And yeah, hopefully he can build on what he did last year.
Pops Mafia comes in and says, I hope next year's list has the new center towards the top. And that's a good segue here to the final thing we're going to talk about this evening, is as players that just missed the cut. Yeah. I'll start with a guy like Sedrick Van Pan Granger, right? Again, I don't know how much he's going to see the field in 2024. A lot of people seem very confident Connor McGovern's going to go back to left guard. Van Pan Granger is going to kick into center, and everything's going to be roses, and it's going to be wonderful. I don't know if that opportunity is going to be there in year 1, but I do know if injury forces him into the pivot, or if he ultimately does win this job, I think Van Pan Granger is a guy who very easily could be on this list next year as our pivot of the next 8 years, like a 2 contract type of player in Sedrick Van Pan Granger. So he just missed the cut for me. Any players just missed the cut for you?
Yeah, it's hard to kind of like, a lot of people, had mixed feelings about this draft class, but it's hard to kind of ignore guys like DeWayne Carter and Ray Davis, right? I feel like DeWayne Carter, you watch the embedded, we were obviously huge fans of his in the pre-draft process. The Bills got him at a point in time where defensive tackles were flying off the board in that round 3. he was the last like kind of, I guess, name guy that was on the board, and we snagged him. And how can you not want to root for this guy after what you saw in the
Mhm.
videos? I mean, absolutely professional captain. Love that he was a captain for 3 years. I mean, I feel like he can really make an impact as a
Mhm.
rotational interior player. We know the Bills love to rotate the defensive linemen. So I could see DeWayne Carter having a pretty decent impact. And then again, the Bills last year was James Cook and a combination of Latavius Murray
Mhm.
and at times Ty Johnson. And obviously Ty Johnson's back, but no Latavius Murray, no Leonard Fournette. Obviously, was very limited last year, but really no Latavius Murray.
Yeah.
Ray Davis could be that guy this year who maybe surpasses Ty Johnson as the preferred second option, and we could see him making an impact as a rookie and beyond, right? So,
Mhm.
yeah, I like to think that those guys from this draft class can have an impact maybe this year.
Yeah, the last two sort of names I have on the list, and someone threw out Jack Browning into the the chat. I'm not about to go and put a UDFA punter, even in the just missed the cut list. He's way down the list for me. And I knew somebody, Dave. I knew somebody would call us out, and that's why I prefaced at the top of the show. I don't know if you were here, Roy. It says Epenesa turns 26 in September. Y'all are pushing it with that one. I did not feel like putting in enough research to actually search people's birthdays. So I just went off of the filter feature on the BuffaloBills.com
It's as of
website
today.
when we
As
generated
of
this
today.
list. But any of these guys could fill in that spot for AJ Epinesa next year. Dorian Williams is intriguing to me. We
Yeah.
saw the year 2 jump that Terrel Bernard made when he was given the opportunity. Dorian Williams
Mhm.
is not likely going to get that opportunity, but if a guy like Matt Milano gets hurt, knock on wood, and is unable to play again for spurts this season, I can envision a world where Dorian Williams steps in and just takes off, right?
Yep.
So he could be a guy on this list next year. And then Kaiir Elam as well. Rasul Douglas is turning 30 years old. The Bills have brought in a whole bunch of new coaches in the secondary. It's a fresh start for a guy like Kaiir Elam. Somebody gets injured, he'll have a chance to play. He'll likely play this year. I mean, every year we see injuries to our CBs. If he can go in there, he can play solid. There could be a starting opportunity for Kaiir Elam in 2025. So I wouldn't count out Kaiir Elam just yet either.
Yeah, one or two other names. Obviously, someone mentioned Javon Solomon, and again, another person from this year's draft class. What kind of impact can he make as purely like a situational pass rusher would be interesting. And then I would also say, like, just generally speaking, like some of these guys that are sort of swing or backups, like
Mhm.
could be important. Guys like Alec Anderson, we've talked about, and he could have an important role as like a backup. Balon Spector, we saw him play last year. By the way, I really love the linebacker group top to bottom. I
Yeah.
think it's one of my favorite position groups on the team. But yeah, I think you nailed it with Elam, and I think you nailed it. Nailed it with Dorian Williams. The Bills do not want to be in a position like they were in last year's playoff game, and you could see
Mhm.
Brandon Bean putting an emphasis. People get mad about linebacker, but and Olafoshu, we didn't even mention him, right, as a possible
Yeah.
impact player as well. So love the linebacker group.
We got Aiden coming to the great comedy. He says, you guys should retitle this episode as Players That Are Young Enough to Date Leonardo DiCaprio. And we'll close it out with this one. Pops Mafia says, my birthday is tomorrow, but I'm over 25. So happy almost birthday, Pops. And thank you to all of you guys in the comment section who are with us this evening. This was a really fun exercise. We're not done this week. We will be back Thursday with a live premiere at 9 p.m. after Buffalo late night. No, we will not be breaking down the schedule because it's going to be a pre-recorded episode, but we're going to do another exercise similar to this, where we are going to be power ranking the top 10 quarterbacks, or who we believe are the top 10 quarterbacks in the National Football League. So that exercise will help us sort of tier or place Josh Allen amongst all the other quarterbacks in the National Football League. So that should be a fun little exercise here as we start our off-season power ranking theme, because I think we have a lot more of these similar type of shows coming over the next couple of weeks. But Dave, any final thoughts before we head out of here?
No, I think, going through this exercise really shows you top to bottom how youthful the Bills roster is. And I mean, yes, some key players are older. I get that. But like Micah Hyde's gone, Jordan Poyer's gone. Von Miller's bringing that age average up, but like Stephon Diggs is gone. So it's pretty youthful overall on this team. As we mentioned, about 10% or less of the rosters age 30 over as of today. So I know that'll be different to come season.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much again. Join us Thursday, 9 p.m. as we power rank the top 10 quarterbacks in the National Football League. See where we place Josh Allen amongst the NFL's elite. Until next time, Dave, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Thank you for watching tonight's episode of the Air Raid Hour. Make sure to hit that like button on the way out. If you are catching the show on demand, leave a reply in the comments section and we will respond over the course of the week. You can always listen to every episode next day on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, by searching Air Raid Buffalo. Thank you for your continued support, and as always, go Bills!